Join us right now to talk about what antitrust policy could look like in a second Trump term. Makan Delrahim is here. He's the former U.S. Assistant Attorney General at the DOJ's Antitrust Division under President Trump. He's now a partner at Latham Watkins, and this is his first TV interview since last week's election. Makan, thank you so much for joining us. We were just talking to Peter Orszag. There's a sense right now that deal-making may be on the comeback in a very big way. Do you agree? Do you see it that way at this point?
Well, good morning, Andrew. Thanks for having me back. I do agree. I think what you're going to have is, I think, more predictability in some of the regulatory reviews, whether it's a regulatory agencies outside of antitrust or the two antitrust agencies. And I think you're going to have some confidence that you're going to have perhaps remedies in mergers and a greater ability to have confidence to invest in these types of transactions.
So Makan, there's been big questions about cases that are being brought currently today, both by Lena Khan at the FTC, others being brought by the DOJ against some of big tech. Do you think that those cases continue to move forward apace? Do they slow down? Do they get pulled? What happens?
I think most cases will continue, at least in the short term. You're going to have part of that will depend on the personnel that will be in those positions. They will take a cold, hard look. If they believe that it's regulatory overreach, I anticipate the new Assistant Attorney General, new Attorney General will then pare back some of those cases. I remember when I first went in 2017, I wasn't a huge fan of the American Express case brought by the previous administration. I thought it was misguided. It ultimately ended up in the Supreme Court with a case that I think was not good for enforcement or for predictability in the marketplace. And I think you'll see those types of cases be pulled back, but otherwise it'll be business as usual for the time being.
There was a comment that President-elect Trump made recently about Google. Said, you know, he wants fair competition, but he said you don't want to bust up the whole company and ruin it. Do you look at a case like the one against Google, or even some of the cases against Apple and others, and think, you know, that Trump's view of this changes that dynamic?
Well, as you know, I was the one who opened up those two cases, and I won't comment on any specific case. But I think what you have to take a look at is look at these cases and what will be the limits of the law. And I think any case that is pending, they will take a look at it, look at the resources the government has, and what is the right outcome. Making sure you have the incentives to innovate, making sure you have the ability to compete fairly in the marketplace, and what is the right outcome ultimately. So I think those cases are continuing through the court system, and they will make those decisions based on what it is, rather than, I think, you're going to have new folks in place who may not be as, as much entrenched in the outcome of the case, but will come in with a fair view of what the ultimate result will be.
One area of attention has been the media industry. Of course, that's the industry, and here we are on TV. But a lot of folks have been talking for a long time about the need for consolidation, and during this last administration, a view that there was not an opportunity for that kind of consolidation. Do you see that shifting under Trump?
I think each case will be case by case. I represent one of the parties in the Paramount transaction, and so that will I think will go on. What you will see is the case like Tegna, Standard General's takeover of Tegna, which went through the antitrust division, got through that regulatory review, but you had, by all counts, at the FCC blocking that deal, not really on the substance of it. That was a perfectly rule-compliant transaction. But what ended up happening is that they used the procedures of the regulatory process to kill a deal. And I think there's a lot of transactions that might be competitively positive, create some synergies in the marketplace, probably save jobs, that got held up in the regulatory process because of the regulatory overreach of this administration. Right. And I think those will be curtailed.
Makan, there's been questions about Lena Khan. I think there's a general sense that she won't be in this role, but then there are some people out there who say, look, J.D. Vance has said a lot of positive things about Lena Khan. What do you think?
Well, look, Lena is certainly somebody who has the intellect and added some vigor over the FTC. I would be shocked if she remains in the position. Typically, as normal course, those types of positions, you resign and you let the new president appoint your replacement. Of course, at the FTC, you have 3 democratically appointed commissioners, so somebody's going to have to resign come January 20th. That's the normal procedure. I don't know exactly what the new administration is going to think about her or as opposed to other commissioners, but I would be surprised if she remains in that position rather than somebody that the new administration would want in that role.
What about more broadly sort of antitrust doctrine, which was shifted under this administration? Jonathan Cantor, your successor, and Lena Khan and others put together an outline effectively explaining how they believe that antitrust policy should be enforced in this country. Some people thought it went too far. Others were very supportive of it. Does that go away? Does that get pulled off the table? Does the next person who takes over Jonathan Cantor's job rewrite that document? Do they eliminate the document? Do they edit the document? What happens?
Look, there's a number of documents. I think that you're referring to the merger guidelines that they put in place, and they repealed the new merger guidelines that I put in place, vertical merger guidelines, and the merger remedies that they withdrew. I think by all objective views of those guidelines, they actually didn't create any transparency for the marketplace. They said, here's what's going to be. We're going to have maximum role in enforcing these and in the future litigation. But it actually didn't do what I think guidelines should do, which is to provide predictability and transparency in how the government operates. And those, we had a number of those in place. I did not update the merger guidelines. We continued to use the Obama administration latest update. There were incremental updates to reflect new thinking in economics and new legal cases that have come up, rather than trying to rewrite the law. And I think that's what happened here in this last administration. Some of those efforts were viewed as rewriting the law rather than providing transparency.